One of the leaders on this list lost his country. Another was almost removed from power by his own system. One governed while his nation was literally tearing itself apart, and none of them were universally loved. This is not a list of the greatest leaders. It is a list of leaders history put under pressure. History does not test leaders in calm times. It tests them when economies collapse, when violence feels inevitable, and when institutions stop working as designed. This video is not about popularity. It is not about charisma, and it is not about perfect leadership. It is about decision-making under pressure, when choices carried irreversible consequences and shaped entire societies. Some of these leaders are celebrated, some remain deeply controversial. All of them were tested. Before we begin, a quick note. This ranking is based on historical research and crisis leadership analysis, not approval ratings or ideology. Each leader is evaluated using 3 criteria: the severity of the crisis they faced, the decisions they made under pressure, and the long-term consequences of those decisions. With that context, here are 10 leaders tested by crisis. Angela Merkel never looked like a crisis leader, but between 2008 and 2016, Europe faced overlapping emergencies that threatened its unity. The Eurozone nearly collapsed. Later, the refugee crisis tested borders and political cohesion. Merkel chose compromise over spectacle and stability over popularity. Her leadership did not inspire crowds, but it prevented fragmentation. History may not celebrate her loudly, but it will remember what did not fall apart. In 1965, Singapore was expelled from Malaysia. No natural resources, no military depth, no guarantee of survival. Lee Kuan Yew faced a crisis not of war, but of existence. He built institutions before ideology, discipline before democracy, and stability before popularity. His methods remain debated, but the state he built survived when few expected it to. In 2022, Ukraine faced a full-scale invasion many believed would end its independence within days. Volodymyr Zelensky was expected to flee. He did not. That decision reshaped the conflict's early trajectory. But leadership here did not stop at presence. As the war continued, Zelensky mobilized global attention, secured military and economic support, and kept Ukraine at the center of international diplomacy. Leadership here was not strategy alone. It was presence, persuasion, and endurance. Zelensky turned resistance into identity, and identity into sustained support. India's independence did not arrive peacefully. It arrived with partition, mass displacement, and communal violence. Jawaharlal Nehru governed amid chaos, with fragile institutions and impossible expectations. He chose democracy over authoritarian efficiency and pluralism over revenge. The costs were real, so was the foundation. China emerged from revolution ideologically rigid and economically broken. Deng Xiaoping faced a system that could not feed its people. He abandoned ideological purity for pragmatism. It did not matter whether the cat was black or white, as long as it caught mice. The result was transformation without collapse, though the trade-offs remained debated. By the 1980s, the Soviet system was unsustainable. Mikhail Gorbachev chose reform over repression. Glasnost, perestroika. He loosened control knowing he might lose power, and he did. To some, he ended an empire. To others, he prevented mass bloodshed. Both can be true. South Africa stood on the edge of racial conflict. Decades of apartheid had created every condition for revenge. Nelson Mandela chose restraint. He asked the oppressed to forgive before justice was fully delivered. That choice prevented a civil war history fully expected. Leadership here was moral authority under maximum pressure. Franklin D. Roosevelt assumed office during the Great Depression. Banks were failing. Unemployment was massive. Faith in democracy was eroding. He expanded the state to save the system. Later, he led a nation through global war. He did not just respond to crisis, he redefined the role of government itself. In 1940, Britain stood alone. France had fallen. Bombs fell nightly. Winston Churchill understood something critical. Morale was a weapon. His words sustained resistance when survival was uncertain. Leadership here was defiance made contagious. Abraham Lincoln governed a nation tearing itself apart. Civil war, constitutional crisis, moral reckoning. Every decision risked failure. He expanded executive power to preserve democracy, then ended slavery within that same framework. Lincoln held a nation together by redefining what it stood for. These leaders were not perfect, but history does not demand perfection. It asks whether leadership endures when institutions crack under pressure. Crisis reveals power, and power reveals leadership. This ranking was not about popularity or ideology. It was about leadership under pressure. Rankings like this are not verdicts. They are frameworks to compare, to question, and to understand. If you value research-driven rankings that go beyond headlines and hype, support the channel by liking and subscribing. More analyses like this are coming.